Hey guys, welcome to this 3D World tutorial. I'm Conrad and I'm going to be showing you how to create the volcano in this first video. Um, Apologies if my machine chugs. I'm currently rendering the image, the final version, so yeah, I'm going to be bashing it. This computer's not gonna like me. But to start with, there's a number of ways that you can actually go through and create this volcano. You could create it within Vue, however you like, and then sculpt it, or you can create it within World Machine, which is another piece of software, and you could create it entirely within World Machine, which is this bottom section here, or you can combine the two. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I've decided to combine the two, and the reasons will become apparent as we go on. But in basically, to put it basically, using the two software, you can take the advantages of Vue and throw them into World Machine and use the advantages there, and come out with a much better product. So this is the procedural terrain I've used, and I'll show you just quickly. This is part of the chugging of the machine. I'll show you how to create it, but I just wanted to show you the actual OpenGL view. But I think my RAM is a little bit on the low side at the moment. There it is. So it's a procedural terrain. It's currently at 4096 because that's the resolution we want to export it at. And that's a better view for you. So I've added a tilted strata to that, and it's very simple. Just forget about these two elements. They just get added by Vue automatically. It's just a terrain fractal with the strata here, and we mainly just got to get that angle. We add in the degrees there. So let's cancel out of that, and we'll create another one next to it once it decides that the mesh will be drawn. So the process here is create the fractal terrain in Vue, size it up to a 4K resolution, and then translate that into a standard terrain. We export the map as a 16-bit TIFF file, and we re-import that into World Machine using their file import options. Wow, this is really taking ages. Okay, so let's put that to the side. I'm going to throw that on a different layer and hide that layer so that it's not chugging my viewport. So over on the left, click on the procedural terrain. We just double click on it to grab this, turn off the zeroed edges so we get a nice continuous terrain. I'm just going to turn up the details one before I go and edit the function. Let's arrange these windows here so we can see them both. We'll change the fractal that's there to a terrain fractal, and this can be whatever you really desire, and that's actually pretty close to what I'd like, just to start with. So you really want quite a noisy terrain here. You don't want to fixate on creating the finer details, because we're going to create the shapes in World Machine later, and you can always come back to Vue later as well. But you'll see in a moment that World Machine really does change the style. So I've added a filter. Come down to the filter type, and we go to recursive strata. First things first, we'll add the tilt angle to 35 as we did before. And you can right click on the viewport and drag it around to see what it's doing. And it's not really doing too much now because I think the layers are spread out way too much. So there's now you can see there's two major strata layers there. So I'm going to turn plateau filling up. That basically fills in all the flat areas with a bit more detail. And there you go. It's probably a bit too rough for my liking, so I'm going to turn the roughness down to 0.59. Yeah. We want to get more more layers in there though, so let's try and tweak the values. So the rock hardness, the layer hardness will dictate the strength of the lines, the strata lines, and the layer thickness is that lift that it gets. So that's the massive lift there. You can see as I turned it the other way. So basically, the different people will have different ways of explaining this. My way of explaining it is the layer spacing is it will affect how many layers you get within your specific terrain, and the layer thickness is how much of a drop you get within that. So it's looking a little nicer. Not really liking how steep that is though, so might actually turn the smooth edges up a bit. So, and I'll probably have to change around some of the details of the main fractal. So I've turned up the distortion, which gives us these nice waves. And let's turn up the largest feature as well. There we go. So I've just had too many small features. I want to get some global striations here and see these sweeping lines coming through our terrain. So I'm pretty happy with that. Press OK. Now we come up and we multiply this until it gets to 4096. Just for the sake of this, I'm only going to take it to 2000 because I don't fancy my chances with the amount of RAM that's currently free, which is probably a lot more than I would have thought. So I got 15 gigs is used, so yeah, it's not. Vue is currently using a lot on that render. Okay, so now that it's at the resolution that I want, actually, to be honest, you don't need to take it to 4096. You can deal with 2048 because we're going to put that into World Machine, and World Machine then we can take it to 4098. And sorry about that. I've got Skype on still. So come over to the left, click on this button here and click standard, and this will convert this into a standard mesh. Once that's done, it looks the same. We go export, use the file name, and I'm going to drop it into here. Just create a new, put it in there, and we're going to change the format to a TIFF file. So I usually affix out my names with something like Vue output, so I know, and sometimes even a 1, so it's right up the top. Click on save, click on 16 bits, that'll make it a whole crazy amount of colors, and doesn't really matter about LZW file compression. Might as well, but you want to turn off generate material maps because we have no materials and we're not interested in exporting them at this point. So we press OK, it does that, and it will take us over to here into Volcano, and there it is there. So that hasn't actually exported as 16 bits, so let's go in and check that out. Might have to select a different, TGA. TGA is the one that we want. And so into Volcano, save that. I believe TGA is the one that we want. Here we go. So this is the pop-up screen that says we can export this at 16 bits, and this makes it a lot tastier. So there it is. Whole bunch of crazy colors. So that's our job done within Vue, at least for the time being. So I'm just going to copy that address, and we'll come over to World Machine, which is this fantastic little algorithm. Well, it's a node-based software, and the real power comes in these Erosion nodes, which have all sorts of amazing algorithms. So come up to the generators, and we're going to click on File Input. and in a moment I'll just show you what these are all about. But file input, and this allows us to load in. If we double click, we load in, and we can load in our procedural terrain export TGA file, which if it was 4K, then it'll be 48 megabytes. So it loads in, and you can see up the top here, top left, that it's not quite the right size for us. So what we need to do is try and scale that up, and you can use the quick scaling. And there you go, just go set from view. That scales it up. You can also change that altitude scaling, but I generally leave it at natural file elevations. That's the most accurate in terms of crossing over from view to this, but at the end of the day it doesn't really matter for us. So if we click up here, we can click either F8 or click on the 3D view button, and we've got this model in here. If we click on the yellow or green button, it will build our terrain and create a higher resolution copy of it. The yellow will just build whatever is needed for your current view. The green will build everything, which is why I didn't click it, because it would have built all of these as well. Just to show you the comparison before we continue, I've got two terrains here, and I started off by creating just a World Machine volcano to see what would come out, and then I decided that I did actually want the view base in there. So if I show you the basic comparison, I'll just do a 512 by 512 build of everything, and I'll show you how to change the sizes later on. So that's done, and this is the volcano created just inside of World Machine, which is pretty good. Probably just bump that up again to show you, since it pretty much did it instantly last time. So thermal weathering is one, and the snow erosion node or snow deposit node in World Machine take a long time. That's because they're not multi-threaded, by the way. But, in a moment this will be done. So what I've done here is I've just used a couple of inputs, Perlin fractals, Voronoi fractals and such, and mixed them together, used a radial gradient to sink in the cone, the nose of this volcano, and that's what you get. Now we can compare that with one that, no, that's not view. Let's go to hide output. This is made from Vue as well as World Machine, and you can see how much more interesting it is. You've got nice arêtes that come out, these ridges that creep on away from the volcano. You could look at this from almost any angle, and you can find something really cool to look at. So this is the main crater that we're looking at in the actual image. We're about here, and this has been sunken down, just painted away inside of Vue. So that's what we're looking to do, and simply put, we've got our file input, and we're combining it with a radial gradient. So if you're wondering what these look like, just look up in the top left, and that gets combined to just sink around the outside edges. That then gets combined with the negative of this, but I put a bias gain on it. So basically just gone from there's the radial gradient, and then I've applied the bias gain to shrink it in. And the first combiner was file input like that, combined to sink the outer edges, combined again to sink this this hole for the crater, and we can sink it right in, added some noise, and we just continue down the line. So let's do that again. We'll go to the generator, over here to radial gradient, click on it, drag it out, and we go to combiner, choose the second one, add the two, let's connect them up, and we'll go into the radial gradient and just bring that out a bit. So now we've got a combiner. We want to just bring in, we want to subtract. No, we probably want to average the two. I'll just go back and double check what I used over here. So I've used detail. It just speeds it up. You can experiment with the two. So that's what this is doing. It's using the shape of the radial gradient, and then it's adding in any detailed areas of our file input. So we drag that one up. We use another combiner here, and we'll add that in. We want a bias gain from the filters. So that's the last one. By the way, to get rid of a filter that you've got selected, just right click with your mouse not moving, and that'll fix that up. So bias gain, connect these into there, come in and clamp that down, gain, come back into this, and we want to change this to a subtract, or an, no, we probably want to just flip these two around. That'll make it easier. And now we've got, you can see in the top left there where it's subtracting. So if I go back to this view, you can see it's been subtracted out there. If I bring that back up as I move this, it gets moved. Cool. One thing that can be good to use is the grouping tool, which is in the first tab. Just click and drag, and you can give it a color and opacity, and just call it new group. And what that actually does is, you can then see on the left here, you've got a better organization, and if you go into your view here, you've got organization of that as well. Okay. Alright, so the next part was to just add a couple more details. So I've ended up going to the filter to the noise node, just added that in, and it's just to add a little bit of detail to those flat areas, just to break it all up. Now here comes the fun part, which is the natural erosion nodes. This is where everything starts to look realistic. So I'm just going to build that up to that point and show you what it looks like. So we've got this nice flowing over, sort of cone shape with the noise applied to it, and it doesn't really look very realistic at the moment. So we're going to go in and add thermal weathering, and just be careful with this node because it really loves to chug, as I mentioned before. So the iterations is one of the massive influences. If you crank that up, just expect to be waiting a long time, especially at the higher resolutions. Lower resolutions, it won't be too bad. So, and you generally don't need more than 50. Also, the two phase, while it will create better quality, it will also slow it down slightly. So thermal weathering is basically weathering from expansion and contraction of water and rocks. That's the most simple way. So it's not running water. That's what we're going to get to next, and that's what people love the most, is because it gives you those nice flowing lines. But the thermal weathering is what's creating these here, and they're called talus formations. So it gives you these conical shapes because generally there's no water erosion, or not much water erosion, so they get the deposits of dirt just get deposited right at the base of wherever the erosion is occurring. So there you can see the balance is smoothing off those steep edges. And we can tweak these. The rock angle is basically how steep is it before the rock gets taken away. So if this is really flat, then you're going to get smoothing all over the terrain, and if it's really high, you probably don't get much at all. And the talus angle is also sort of links into that, where the talus is that cone shape at the base. and the mass balance is how much of it is getting taken away or deposited, and general strength is what it says. So okay, so we've done that. I'll just check these. I'll open that up for you. So I've used pretty much the same default values as it comes with. I'll just move these to the same one for the sake of this, and I'm going to add some more noise to it again, because we've just eroded, so we want to add a little bit more detail into it. And let's go with additive noise. Yeah, pretty happy with that, so I'll just build that again. So there's the thermal weathering going as it usually does. It takes ages. Cool. Done. So if we go back here, we got thermal weathering, and just a tiny tad bit more noise to add into that. And now we can add our natural filter, which is our erosion one that we want in there. And we connect these two, and this is probably the best thing to get your head around this node, and it's really not that hard. Channeled erosion will create more grooves from water. Generally, most people like that as well. We're not going to bother about the filters. They're for tropical versus snow environments, whereas we're not really either. A snow environment, you'd use an inverse filter, by the way. It'll create more sharper erosion lines. We're going to crank the base duration up, as we want as much erosion as we can in this, and we'll just tweak the rock hardness to be not too solid. Basically, rock hardness sets, if it's at 1, you'll pretty much get 0 erosion. And the sediment carry is how much of the rock is actually eroded away and carried down the mountain. That will happen with large torrents of water. Will, for instance, carry away more of the soil and sediment that gets eroded away. So we're going to set this at rather high. We'll bring this down. Filter strength, we're not using filter, so we don't have to worry about that. And the geological time enhancement is like a multiplier. It runs the algorithm over 10 times, or just a long time, a long period. So that can be a good one if you're not happy with the amount of erosion here. This will pretty much just multiply it. So I'm just tweaking these values. When I'm moving these, I'm actually looking up in the top left here to see what the effect is. So channel depth is only enabled because we're using channeled erosion, and what I generally say is don't just crank this to the top, because it's not going to look any more realistic. Leave it generally in the middle, and always use a tiny bit of post-channel erosion. At the very least, use 5%. Basically, that means it'll carve the channel, and then it'll erode within that channel again to add a bit more realism to that. Okay, so that one goes nice and quickly, and you can see this looks like crap. That's because we still have to go in and adjust it. So it's we're getting some nice curving around here from that fractal. We've still got way too much noise through here, so we need a lot more erosion there. And this thing here is not looking good. This is the channeled erosion that's creating that. So we're going to turn that down. In fact, we'll just stay in this view and turn this down. Let's turn the rock hardness down and the erosion. So as I turned the rock hardness down, we started getting a flat. If I show you here, rock hardness, and as I turn it down it really flattens out. So because I wanted these to be higher, I'm just reducing the geological time that it's applying this over to keep that shape. Alright, so that's a lot nicer. We're actually getting flows of rocks that look like they've fallen down off the volcano. This middle section is probably a little bit too wide for my liking. We've lost some of the nicer details of these ridges coming out and reaching out. So we can go in again and probably just increase that once more. Reduce this. It's a back and forward process. In fact, you should probably reduce this to a value that only takes a couple of seconds, but to start with, it's sometimes good to see it in higher resolution. So this is all up to what you desire it to look like. So I'm just going to have a look back at the other options that I had, because I don't want to waste your time, seeing as you can just copy them anyway. Seems about there. Let's try that. I have a feeling this will be too flat. Yeah, too flat. So increase this rock hardness. Let's just turn that down. See how that goes. I'll just leave it at this point anyway. Yeah, that's not too bad. We're still keeping a lot of the details. We've got some of the ridges coming out here. I would still like to see more of that curve that we get going in this one, but it'll do for now. So that's pretty much the volcano done. You've created it and you can pretty much just output it from there. The only thing next that we're going to do, and this isn't necessarily the most effective or efficient way to get it, but to get a map for where the lava will be, I'm going to use all these bias gains and selectors to extract basically this thing which hasn't been built. So there it is. So this is a map based on slope and height of the terrain. So what we do is just extend this out, and we'll come into the selectors, and we've got a whole bunch of different ones. Convexity is basically how extreme the angle is at any point. So this is great for selecting out creeks, and you can see why. You can see these nice grey areas. If you took this into Photoshop and did a selection just on that color, you'd be able to get a really nice map of this middle lava area. In fact, I suggest you do that. I suggest you just forget about what I'm about to show you, because it's not really the most effective. But this is the area that I'm trying to select. So we've got our select convexity, and go to, see how we want to do this. We use a bias gain into there, and this should allow us to white out that area of the middle of the volcano. So we've selected that, and now we can clamp it. If I can remember where the clamp is, it's there. So we're going to clamp the values so that we really just restrict. we want clip. Let's try it. A couple of different things here that can be done. So nope. See what this one's doing. Okay, I think I've set this up. Yeah, there we go. I want to let a lower value on this, on the convexity, and let me just go like that. Let's put this to, let's put it to the black values. Come into clamp and let's see if the clamp will work now. Still wanting to just modify all the values, and I don't want that. There we go, that one's working. There we go, so I can move the black areas out to just fill in the black area. And let's see how that's going now. Okay, so I've got this nice black area in the middle that I was aiming for. And now what we'll do is we're going to use the selectors again and select the height, and we also want a slope selector, and we're going to come in and we're going to mask out this based on the height and the slope. So come to here and we want to select just that top portion, but not the very top. We just want about there. Let's turn the fall off down so we can really see where we're selecting. See how we're getting that nice circle in the center there? So we're going to use that, and we're going to plug that into the slope selector and then attach that, and then we'll crank the slope selector down. So what we've done is we've selected the white areas on our terrain, which are at a certain altitude. We're selecting a certain height, so we've got that ring around there. The reason we want that is we want this middle circle, and then we're plugging this into the mask of a select slope. So if I just disable that, you can see I've selected slopes which are flatter, so I'm getting rid of these steep areas which come up to the volcano's crater. So when I go to mask that out, select that, and we've got a good nice area in the middle here. In fact, we probably don't even need this area here, but I'm just going to go in and mask it, see if it even worked, which it seems it didn't, but maybe it need to be inverted, but nevertheless we can actually use the, that's how we do it. We use the clamp there to link it back in. So we get rid of this. Just had a lapse in my process there. So we're using the area that we've already selected and then selecting a height based on that. But for this case, I'm just going to get rid of these original ones and just use the select slope, which is here. But you know, you could have just gone into Photoshop and painted that in, as I mentioned. So finally, our output, we want a bitmap output for the, sorry, no we don't. We want, first of all, we want a height output for our primary terrain. And you could use a bitmap output, or you can use a height output for the select slope. I think, gut feeling, yeah, the bitmap, even though you want it as bitmap, it won't connect to a height map data, because this is essentially height map data. But we can output it as just a BMP and set it to, let's go up to the folder I was in, volcano, let's call it lava map output bitmap will do. And for the height map, we want a Povre TGA or a TIFF, but I just tend to use the TGAs because they've always worked for me. So let's go WM output, press OK. Let's write the output to the disk. It'll have to build the terrain. So at this point you don't want to end up with a terrain this big. You want a terrain that's your 4K, as high resolution as you can, as your machine can deal with. So some people will be 2K, some 1K. It really also depends on the distance away from the camera, but Vue tends to handle the high res assets pretty well. So if you want to change your resolution and you don't know how, up the top left, click on this, you've got your resolution there. You want to untick the +1 as well. That's for programs that use a +1 on their resolution, like Erosion. We don't need that. Alright, so that's pretty much it. We're going to go back into Vue, and with our converted terrain, which is now a standard terrain, I'm going to double click on it, and hopefully you saved your procedural version before converting it to a standard one, because you can't convert them back the other way. So once we've got this, we can just click on flatten. You don't need to, but I just do anyway. And we're going to click on the portrait picture, going to load up an image, and we're going to go to our volcano, and we want the World Machine output. Press OK. Make sure the proportions are at 100%, and even though it looks skewed and ultra tall, that's fine. We can scale that in, and it doesn't even matter anyway, because it comes in at about half that scale anyway. So we press OK, and there we go. It's pretty much, that's our terrain, and easy as that. And honestly, if you don't have World Machine, well, if you don't have World Machine, you probably haven't continued watching, but it's something like $195 or $150 US. It's really, really worth it if you're doing terrains and you want to really take them to the next level. So that's it for this part of the tutorial. We'll come back and we'll start working on the materials and populating the terrain and getting the composition right.